The I-team uncovering some serious concerns tonight inside the state's arson lab, and it could have a big impact on numerous past and present criminal cases.
Experts say lab chemists are not following proper procedures when testing samples for gasoline. Investigator Jared Holbrook spent weeks digging through state lab reports, and here is what he found.
When Florida fire investigators gather samples to test for arson, they usually ship them off to this state lab and rely on the chemist's conclusions. But the I-team discovered that lab is under investigation for how they do their tests.
Yeah, this is a huge deal. I mean, it's going to impact every single lab test that came out of that lab.
We found the accreditation for the Florida Fire Marshal's Bureau of Forensic Fire and Explosives Analysis Laboratory is suspended. The reason? Serious problems surface with how chemists have been testing samples for gasoline.
And as a result, they find gasoline where no one else can find gasoline because it doesn't exist. And that ruins people's lives.
John Lentini has been in the arson investigation industry since the 1970s. He's been an expert witness in many arson cases. He says in at least 5 Florida cases he was an expert on, charges were dismissed because the state improperly identified gasoline in their samples.
It's a huge problem in Florida.
John filed this formal complaint with the accreditation agency that holds arson and crime labs to a higher standard. It's not required for a lab to be accredited, but it helps with their credibility in criminal cases.
Finding gasoline where it doesn't exist is a kind of mistake that causes people to be wrongfully accused.
In his complaint, John states, "I suspect erroneous identifications of gasoline happen on a routine basis." John identifies flaws in this case. He says Arthur Stanley Freeman was innocent and sent to jail for arson. Freeman was accused of using gasoline to set his boat on fire. The state lab identified gas in their samples. His arson charge was later dropped, and the state had to pay Freeman $250,000.
They don't follow any written procedure.
After getting John's complaint, the accreditation agency sent their own investigator to the lab in January. When looking at the Freeman case, the investigator found the compounds found in the data were not characteristic of gasoline. And get this, after randomly sampling 26 gasoline cases from 2009 to 2015, they found concerns of accuracy with 14 of them. Their report also states the issue is not whether protocols were followed, rather it appears to be a lack of sufficient protocols.
When that accreditation gets pulled, I mean, that's a really big deal for the crime lab.
Tampa defense attorney Leslie Samus tells us no one told her the lab's accreditation was suspended. She says this information should be shared with every defense attorney in Florida.
So if prosecutors don't know about it, that's a really big problem. And if the prosecutors do know about it and they're not sending it to the criminal defense attorney, that's an even bigger problem.
Jeff Swartz is a former judge and prosecutor. He says the problems identified could send innocent people to jail and even guilty criminals back out on the streets.
It is conceivable that a person who has been rightfully convicted could end up having their conviction overturned.
Is there a problem with the way your lab is testing gasoline?
No, we believe we have outstanding senior lab analysts.
Julius Hallis is the director of the Division of State Fire Marshal under Florida CFO Jeff Atwater.
We actually believe that we're doing outstanding work.
Can you sit here today and say that no samples have been affected by improper testing?
Basically, I would want to discuss that with you as well as with our chief of our forensic area. Because we know that we're doing proper procedures. And so do I have confidence? Yes, I do.
Director Hallis is appealing their case with the accreditation agency. In the meantime, he tells us they will continue testing samples for gasoline and other accelerants. John Lentini says as long as they continue as is, the state is headed down a dangerous path.
More people will be falsely accused of arson. Some people may be wrongfully convicted. And if those people manage to get their convictions overturned, then the state of Florida will pay a lot of money.
CFO Atwater and the lab's director have hired an independent agency to investigate their testing methods. No word yet on how much that cost taxpayers and what the results were. I'm investigator Jared Holbrook, taking action for you.